I'm James Rule. Welcome to the Lonely Leader podcast, where we help existing and aspiring leaders find clarity, build resilience, drive performance, and enhance fulfilment. Set your standards high. That is the focus of this episode of the Lonely Leader podcast. A lot of people talk to me, inquire about high performance. Obviously, I pride myself on working in this space and being a high performance coach. So it's natural that conversations drift this way. And I always frame things around a fabulous quote that I first heard from an ex-Premiership footballer called Phil Neville, who described high performance as the ability to do your best in the moment you are in with the resources you have available. And I think that is a wonderful way to frame high performance. So fundamentally, when I work with individuals, teams, groups, I am trying to give them tools and insights to enable them to raise the level of their best so that they are better prepared and have more resources available in whatever situation, whatever moment they find themselves in. And so there's a natural segue into reflecting on what has served me well in my career, in my leadership tenures as a CEO, and also, as I often allude to, the wonderful privilege I have in working with high performers all around the world in different sectors, public and private sector, FTSE 100 businesses and small to medium-sized enterprises. All of these interactions give me insights into how we create and sustain high performance. And I think standards is something really relevant because fundamentally, to be able to sustain high performance over the longer term, you have to find an ability to hold yourself accountable to the highest possible standards. Yes, you can work with coaches, mentors, you can have accountability partners, and all of this helps. Undoubtedly, of course it does. That's the world I work in day to day. But when all is said and done, you have to find a way to set your own standards and use those as a North Star. Now, some of the areas I'm going to touch on are simple. They are straightforward. The positive of that is that there is a minimal barrier to you stepping into those areas and improving them. The negative is you may dismiss them as obvious. I've heard this all before. Nothing new here. There's no silver bullet. But in reality, there rarely is a silver bullet. What we're talking about is, irrespective if you've heard of these areas, these tips before, are you optimizing it? When we run through these areas, this set of standards are yours of the highest possible level you can make them. That's the fundamental question. As I always say in these episodes, I am striving to prompt reflection, to then encourage you to make some changes, and ideally in this episode to say, actually, I think my standards could be a bit higher. I could hold myself to account. So let's dive in. The first standard I want to talk about is physical appearance. Now, again, I'm not here to insult anybody's appearance, fashion sense, or style. But you've heard me talk in the past about the proven science that most people make up their mind. They set a first impression that they often don't deviate from within a matter of seconds of having met somebody. Now, if that is the case, how much can you do in seconds? You can't open up an in-depth presentation, slide deck, a lengthy report, or narrative. There just isn't time. So what are we really dealing with? Well, we're dealing with our physical appearance. So the basics, being presentable, wearing something that's smart, appropriate to the setting, having clean shoes. I know this is something that people will roll their eyes. I can remember my grandparents talking about clean your school shoes. Well, it applies when you're a school child all the way through to adulthood, because your physical appearance is a reflection of your standards. If you look slovenly, if you look disheveled, if your shoes are dirty, if your shirt's not ironed, and you don't appear to have taken the care in your own personal appearance, do people really think, yep, you'll be the person I want to give an opportunity to? You're the person I want to bring into my employment and trust you working on my products and services. I want to pay you, give you my hard-earned budget, when you don't really have a high level of care and self-respect for your physical appearance. When you frame it like that, it's not just about what you think, it's about the message it sends to other people. The second standard I want to discuss is physical health. Now, I am as guilty as everybody, in fact, probably more so. And for those of you that have worked with me or listened to other podcast episodes in the past, you will know that during a period of my tenure as a CEO, I collapsed one morning with pneumonia. Now, I do believe on reflection that I was sort of self-inflicting that because I was working at far too high an intensity with a limited regard for my recovery physically or mentally, and I ran myself into the ground. It was a physical manifestation of burnout. So the need to look after our physical health has so many benefits. It enhances our energy. It clears out stress and stress hormones within our body. All of this bleeds back into being a more impactful and higher performing professional. But it also is a standard, because why should we allow our job to run us into the ground and burn us out? We have to have the discipline to say, no, enough's enough. I will find the time before work, during my lunch hour, after work, to engage in physical activity. It is important for me to protect my longevity and a healthy and long life. It's important for me in terms of being able to be effective in my job. And it's important as a role model for those of you that are parents. Your children are watching how you look after yourself, how you look after your physical health. And again, coming back to our physical appearance, if we have let ourselves go, if we are not optimizing our physical health, then it shows that we're not holding ourselves to a standard. Now, that might be difficult to hear, and some people may say, I am being offensive to people who are out of shape. I'm not. I'm stating a fact. When you see somebody who takes time and effort and discipline to do the difficult things, to work out consistently, to stay in decent physical shape and physical health, who takes the time to, I'm not saying drape themselves in designer clothes, I'm not talking about appearances in that regard, I'm talking about being presentable, then those combined, our physical appearance, our physical health, do send a message. They do communicate a standard. And equally, we take pride in it ourselves. We all know when we are in good health, working out consistently, we get a dopamine hit, we get those feel-good hormones in our body because we know we are doing things that benefit us, and we are proud of ourselves for having the discipline to do those things consistently. The third standard is clarity. What do I mean by that? It's taking the time consistently to be able to step back from the mania of your to-do list, the firefighting, the email inbox, the endless voicemails and messages awaiting your attention, and take the time to say, where am I? Where am I trying to get to? Am I on track? How do I need to course correct? Equally as important in our personal lives as it is in our professional lives. But if you don't hold yourself to the standard to say, I need to step back and ensure that strategically we are going in the right direction, then you lose your sense of proactivity. You become the proverbial cork in the ocean. You're living reactively, and that lack of control and lack of proactivity massively enhances our stress. The best performers I've seen and the best performers I've worked with consistently carve out the time to sit quietly, reflect with a journal or just in a space without disruption to say, where am I? Where am I going? You must hold yourself to that standard if you want to lead with the maximum impact and optimize your performance in all aspects of your life. The fourth standard to touch on is timekeeping. Are you consistently early and at worst on time for your meetings and commitments, or do you invariably find yourself running late and apologizing about traffic, chaos, the previous meeting overrunning? If it's the latter, make a change, because this standard is so important to how you are perceived and the results you achieve. Flip it round. How do you feel if you have carved out time in your diary and you are waiting for somebody to arrive, virtually or face-to-face? Does it fill you full of energy, excitement, goodwill, that you can't wait to sit down and engage with that individual? Or does it start to make you feel frustrated, irritated, that people are taking advantage of your time and your good nature? For most of us, it's the latter. So why would we put ourselves on the back foot? You're going to meet somebody because you want to secure a new opportunity, a new budget, perhaps a new role. You want them aligned with your strategy. You are putting yourself so far on the back foot by being late. Yes, There can occasionally be extreme examples, a road closure, a major accident en route. But invariably, we are not holding ourselves to the standard. We are not leaving enough time to get to certain commitments, or we are overloading our diary. Virtual meetings is the modern phenomenon. Having meetings running back to back to back, there needs to be even just a few minutes of space to allow for the overrunning of a previous meeting. Hold yourself to a standard. One of the most elite, high performing teams I've ever come across is the New Zealand All Blacks. And they all work to the mantra that 5 minutes early is on time. Why? It's a respect, it's a standard, it's a level of professionalism. We can all improve in this area, and the impact of doing so is enormous for you as an individual and for everybody around you. The fifth standard to consider is your growth and development. Now, anybody who's listened to the rationale for the naming of my business, The Lonely Leader, knows that there is a nod towards the isolation that too many leaders put themselves in and the lack of focus on their growth and development. It comes from a noble place. They're so busy focused on their stakeholder needs, their staff needs, on a personal level, their partners or their children's needs. So we're all outwardly looking on what everybody else needs, which, as I say, is a noble position to operate from. But the reality is we've got to put our own oxygen mask on first. If we are going to help people in all those areas of our lives, we need to be at the highest level of performance, and we can never stop learning. Just because you've been appointed at whatever role you're now in doesn't mean that's it. Cue in the rack, we're finished. You may be able to climb even higher within the organization. If you don't want to, there'll certainly be ways to enhance your impact and performance in your existing role. But we must carve out the time. It ties in with the clarity piece earlier to reflect on where I am, where do I want to get to, how do I need to get there. Invariably, part of the answer of how I need to get there is to invest in your growth and development. That may be enrolling on a training course. That may be picking up a book and developing some insights from a particular author, or indeed listening to a podcast. It might be engaging with an external coach or mentor, or potentially somebody within your existing organizational hierarchy as an internal mentor. Wherever that growth and development comes from, we all need it. Nobody is the finished article. And when I reflect on the highest performers I meet, they epitomize this standard. They are constantly striving for new sources of information and new ways to enhance their growth and development. The sixth standard is presence. Being truly present in your professional and personal interactions. I hear most days one of the most frequently expressed challenges is a lack of presence. People recognize that they're struggling. They're struggling to be truly present in all of their interactions. When they're at home, when they're with family or loved ones, they're thinking about work. When they're at work, they're thinking about loved ones. And guess what? They're not alone in recognizing the problem, because the people that you are with sense it. We've all been there. If somebody's, but they're not really listening, you instantly pick up on that vibe, and it makes the whole dynamic of the discussion change. You don't feel particularly valued. It all feels a bit of a waste of time. But it's a standard. It's a standard that you can take control of. I've been there. My mobile phone was holstered to my hip literally permanently. It was never out of arm's length. So for me to become more present in my personal interactions with my family, I had to force myself to put it in a drawer and just take out 20 minutes, half an hour to sit and have a bite to eat with my family on an evening, or to put it in my office and go back to it at the end of a particular professional meeting, team or individual. We can hold ourselves to a standard that it's okay to put our phone to one side. We're not asking to put your phone to one side for days on end, but for that particular meeting, if you've committed the time to meet a colleague, somebody junior or more senior to you, or indeed to be with a loved one in your personal network, then be truly present with them. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. As I said earlier, they will sense your lack of connectivity, your lack of presence, and you might think, yes, I'm doing the right thing, but it's just a tick box. You may as well just call a halt to the meeting and say, I'm not present, this is a waste of everyone's time, I'm leaving. Now, you wouldn't do that because you think it's rude. Trust me, it's far ruder to not be truly present with the people you love. Everybody can sense it. You're not kidding anybody. Not kidding anybody. So why not commit to be truly present and have a standard that if your time is going to be given to a person, a project, or a meeting, you give it 100% to the best of your ability. The seventh standard is your consistency as a leader. Now, this could take me down a number of different roads, but I think what I'm going to focus on under this is holding people to account. You cannot have favorites. You've seen it, I've seen it. People are held to account when they perhaps are a lot more junior to a leader, or they haven't been working with that particular leader very long. On the flip side of that analogy, when somebody's senior, perhaps they've been working alongside the leader for many, many years, there's almost a sort of, I don't really want to hold them to the same standard. But why? You can't play favorites, and the people around you spot it. If you want the respect and you want to create the right culture in your organization, it's imperative that a standard is a standard and everybody is held to that standard. If you fall short, irrespective of your seniority or your length of service, you are still held to the same standard. So reflect on that point. It's a hard one to recognize. Most of us are guilty of being a little bit softer with those more senior, long-serving members of our team than we are perhaps with the more junior and more recently appointed members. Let's hold everybody to the same standard and hold ourselves to the standard of doing that in the first place. My eighth standard is relationship management. Now, again, a bit like some of the earlier points, you could take this down so many different ways, but I'm going to put this very much around gratitude and following up with real style and class. We're very quick to pick up our pen or our keyboard and fire off emails or notes when things are not going well. But we must remember to take those opportunities to express thanks and gratitude. When people are exceeding our expectations, let's let them know. When we meet people, it's not just on to the next meeting, it's a follow-up, it's a personal touch. And in this modern digital world, that personal touch goes to a whole different level when you take the time to follow up with a written note and to particularly pick out key aspects of how that person has impressed you or impacted you and the reasons that you are grateful. I guarantee when you hold yourself to that standard to always follow up with class and professionalism and to seek out these opportunities for gratitude, then you will massively enhance your relationships, the quality of those relationships, the loyalty from the people around you, and how you are perceived as an operator. When was the last time you received a personalized note of thanks? Exactly. It's rare. Be the person that delivers them consistently and watch the quality of your relationships grow. The next standard is an area I spend a huge amount of time working with clients on, particularly in a one-to-one basis, and it is the quality of our daily routines. In particular, the way we start our day and the way we finish our day. I'm the first to accept that during the course of your working day, there are any number of curveballs and left field instances that can take place that knock you off your plan. And that's the norm. That's the way of operating, particularly for senior leaders. You are there to firefight and crisis manage. However, I would always argue that the first hour after you wake and the last hour before you put your head on the pillow and go to sleep is very much within your control. You need to find a way to proactively start your day and enhance your energy, empower your mindset, and set your stall out for the day, as opposed to a reactive, frantic, disempowering morning, which sets the tone for a day that almost is guaranteed to continue to unravel. And then when we get to the end of the day, it's not enough to say, I don't sleep well, I don't recover well. What are you doing in that final element of the day, and particularly the last hour, to maximize your ability to recover, to flush out the physical and mental stress and fatigue of the day, and prepare yourself for a high energy, optimized performance the following day? Lots of detail to unpack in this, but invariably the challenge is I don't have time. Well, you have to make the time. And that takes me perfectly into my next standard, which is limit your social media and TV consumption. Now, there's no preaching from an ivory tower. We all need downtime. We all need an ability to switch off and relax. But this is becoming an unprecedented problem for the vast majority of people I meet. On the one hand, I hear from everybody about the challenge of I can't be present. I can't build my daily routine. I can't take care of my physical health. I can't engage in my passions or my hobbies because I don't have time. And it's causing me stress and it's undermining my fulfillment and it's undermining my impact and my performance. And yet, when we look back at this fundamental standard that we need to enforce, when is enough enough? When is enough on social media? When is enough on TV? What standard are we holding ourselves to? Are we saying, look, an hour, sit down, relax, watch something, that's great, but after an hour, enough? Or are we just mindlessly clicking next episode, skip intro, next episode, skip intro, and ending up on regular binges on TV streaming services and equally on social media? Are we mindfully diving into something that enriches us, that makes us laugh? And of course, there's sources for this. You could be watching something on YouTube or a particular channel that's making you feel good. Or are you going down the rabbit warren that a lot of people seem to do, getting trapped in a world of comparison, watching stuff that actually isn't making you feel good, watching people trading insults and arguing and taking polarized positions on issues that in reality you have no control over? So this is a huge area, an area I'm very passionate about. And there's no judgment here. I'm not saying have zero TV or social media interaction, far from it. But check yourself, check how it makes you feel and what is your standard. If I said to you, how much TV and social media consumption per day are you comfortable with? You'd give me an answer. Would you be comfortable saying to me, I'm comfortable watching 4 or 5 hours of it a day? You probably wouldn't verbalize that because you'd feel a bit embarrassed. But when we look at our screen time apps and icons, we can see exactly what we are doing from a social media point of view, and we know exactly what we are doing from a TV point of view. Is this enriching you? Is this the standard you want, that you're going to allow months and years to pass saying, I don't have the time, I never had the time to be more present with my children or more connected to my partner or in better physical health or to engage in my passions or to pick up the phone to a friend or to engage in that online course or do any of the things that I know I need to do to move forward professionally? Are we going to keep sitting behind, I don't have time? Well, if we're trapped in that cycle, go to the place that can give you some time back. Put a standard in place around TV and social media. And again, in your own environment, reflect on the people who are the highest performing. Go and ask them. Do your own research. Speak to them and say, how much TV do you watch? How much time do you spend doom scrolling on social media? I guarantee the people that you admire the most, that are building the highest levels of momentum in their life, will say to you, I don't watch that much TV. I don't really scroll that much on social media. There's a message there. Success leaves clues. So let's hold ourselves to a standard of what is an acceptable level of consumption. Now, just to break up my rant a little bit on this one, the next standard that I want you to reflect on is your level of news consumption. I could have thrown this in, but I think it's important enough to separate out. We've got TV consumption. That could be feel-good TV, but let's just watch the volume. There is the social media consumption, which I've articulated at length, which again could have elements of tutorials, learning, feel-good comedy, educational elements. News consumption for me needs looking at through a different lens. People want to be aware and understand what's going on in the world. I understand that. However, what has happened is we've become truly saturated by news cycles. For most of us, we can pop a TV on in our kitchen or the radio, and we can be hearing the news as we prepare our breakfast. We can listen to the news on our car as we drive into work. We have news alerts coming through on our phones through the day. We will hear the news or see the news in meeting rooms within our office buildings or reception areas that we're waiting in to go into meetings. We will hear it on the car radio driving between those meetings. We will hear it on our commute home, and we will see it in print or digital formats as part of our evening routine. So when we look at the number of touch points we have with the news, It is staggeringly high. And we have to ask ourselves, is that filling us full of energy? Is it empowering our mindset? Is it allowing us to excel and meet our goals and drive ourselves forward? Or is it doing the reverse? Is it draining our energy? Is it filling us full of fear and anxiety and disempowering us? And the acid test there is, how often do you see something on the news and go, wow, I need to tell my wife or my husband about that? That was amazing. Very rarely. Most of the time, you end up having a conversation. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Now, I'm not saying that we should go cold turkey, although many of my clients do. I'm not obligating you to do that. What I'm asking you to consider is, what is your standard? How much is enough? How much will the news change once you've digested it once in the day? Do you need all those other multiple touch points? And what can you control within it? Being aware of it, what does it genuinely do? Hearing about death or destruction or harrowing news stories, what does that genuinely do? Because you can't change it. And if you can't change or control it, it is just disempowering your energy and your ability, because you are completely impotent in that process. So the news is something that is valid, worthy of a much deeper discussion, but I'm just putting it there to reflect. And again, I encourage you to openly discuss within your social and professional network the people that you admire, that if you are asking them about TV consumption, social media consumption, follow up with, out of interest, how much news consumption do you indulge in a day? And I guarantee, again, you will be amazed by the fact that most of them say very little, if any. People tend to put barriers up, and the barriers are not to create ignorance. They are to protect themselves, to achieve the things that matter the most to themselves. And for all of you that have a family dynamic in the kitchen, if you want more presence with the ones you love, I guarantee turning the news off will make you more engaged with your children or your partner, because that main distraction has suddenly left the room. We've all been guilty of it, staring at the TV, digesting what's coming through, and completely disconnecting from those people eating the meal, the breakfast, the lunch, or the dinner in the kitchen around us. The next standard I want to consider with you is time for your hobby or passion. What do you love to do? If you had a day off unexpectedly gifted to you by your boss, you weren't allowed to work, your children, if you have them, were taken care of, your partner, if you have them, was taken care of, what would you love to do? How would you spend the day? Is it a walk in nature? Is it a swim? Is it sitting with a good book? Is it going and playing some sort of sport? Is it engaging in learning an instrument or a language? What is it? And my next question, as I'll always ask people when I'm working one-to-one, is, when did you last engage in that? How often do you engage in it? And some of you listening will say, oh, regularly, good for you. But a lot of you will be like, well, I wish I could do more of it, but I don't have the time. So again, it's about creating time by restricting some of the things we've talked about, our TV consumption, our social media consumption, our news consumption, but building the discipline to put things in our calendar. If you aspire to take that walk, put it in your calendar. When are you going to do it? Are you going to invite a friend along? If you aspire to go and swing the golf clubs with a friend, put it in the calendar. Get things locked in that allow you to engage in your passion. When it becomes a standard that's a non-negotiable, then everybody else benefits. And the perversity of this is people feel guilty about indulging in the passion because they think it takes away from the other areas. It's actually completely opposite. When you indulge in your passion, it energizes you, and you will bring more presence and energy to the loved ones and the relationships in your personal life, and you will bring more energy and impact into your professional role. You can reflect on it yourself. When you have a dynamic weekend where you do things that matter, you engage with people that matter, you engage in a passion, and then you step through the door on a Monday, how different do you feel? Find the time to be able to do that consistently. And you do have the time. I'm not saying we've all got hours available every day, but there is time to consistently engage in our passion. And the final point might feel a bit of a tangent, but I want you to have a standard in terms of how you present. I constantly come across the fear of presenting, of standing up in front of groups, whether that's to make a speech, whether that's to deliver big keynote presentations within your professional role. But the harsh reality is you can't avoid it. And if you do avoid doing that successfully, then you are sacrificing your potential to achieve and to impact and to optimize performance, because whatever walk of life you're in, you are constantly presenting. In the traditional commercial sense, you're trying to close deals, but whether you're in a commercial space or not, you're trying to build better relationships, secure buy-in for concepts, for strategy, encourage people to work with you on projects, encourage people to join your organization, or you're presenting yourself to join an organization in the classic sort of sales process that is a job interview. You really can't avoid the need to present well. And yet I struggle with the fact that so many people write themselves off and say, I'm not very good at it. Everybody can get better at presenting. It's an essential to put your brand forward and to achieve the goals and aspirations that you have. When you look at that clarity standard we talked about earlier, where do you want to be? How are you going to get there? Invariably, the route to get there will be speeded up or enhanced if you can present yourself better. If you're looking to focus on your growth and development, the ability to present well to somebody senior in your ecosystem and request mentorship and support will increase the likelihood of that happening. When it comes to any facet of your life, an ability to present well with confidence, articulately, succinctly, then it benefits you. So for me, again, when you look at people you admire in your space, whatever sector you operate in, are they poor at presenting? Invariably, you'll find, well, no, they're very good at it. So work at it. Find ways to practice it, because like everything in life, practice makes a massive impact. You can sit in front of a Zoom screen like this. You can sit in front of your team screen. You can record on your phone. You can stand in front of your bathroom mirror. You can work on habits and traits to improve your ability to present. And I get a tremendous buzz from the clients I've worked with, seeing how they can hugely enhance their life and their fulfillment by investing in themselves and their ability to present well. So it's a slightly longer episode, this one, but it's so important to me that when you go back to that definition of high performance, the ability to do the best that you can in the moment you're in with the resources you have available. We can all raise the level of our best. If we all consistently hold ourselves to a standard, we will be well placed to step into any and every challenge that comes our way and out the other side. So I look forward to hearing the feedback as ever into how you have entwined these insights into your daily life and routines, and the standards and changes you've made to the standards in how you operate both personally and professionally. I wish you the very best of luck with it. Thanks for listening to the Lonely Leader podcast. I'd be very grateful if you could share and follow if the content resonates. And if you're looking for additional free resource to support your continued growth and development, then please do check out our social media and website details in the show notes. Remember, quality leadership on the outside must always start within.